we good?
We're good. We're live.
Okay, we are live. Let me try to get a couple of banners up here first. Okay, I have a checklist, everybody. So this is the first time I've done this. So here we go. Check in and presentation, good to go. Okay. So my name is Deidra Darst, and I'm a speech language pathologist here in West Virginia. And I'm also a CARES board member. Taylor, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself too?
Hi, I'm Taylor McClanahan. I am a Master's of Social Work student at Marshall University, and I am a parent that has greatly benefited from the support of CARES. We were just at the Clay Center last night. Do you want me to go ahead, Deidra, and go over kind of the disclosures and rules? Mm-hmm. So the point of this support group is obviously to draw support, be kind to each other. This hasn't happened yet, and I hope it never happens, but let's not try to focus on aspects that may divide us or that we disagree on, and let's focus on what brings us together, and that's needing support in our journey as caregiving to children who have autism. So I am a student, and so I will be giving advice, but this is in no way professional advice. This is advice from one parent to another.
And I also have a disclaimer for CARES and for me as a therapist. We're not giving medical advice like Taylor said, but we're just here to share information and encourage you to ask questions and hopefully give you some information that you can then take back to your team of professionals and just ask and learn and hopefully just be a part of our CARES family with us. Taylor mentioned that she was at the Clay Center today. I was there yesterday, and I just talked to Sarah. She's our executive director, and she said over the last 2 days, we had 90 people from 19 different families at the Clay Center. So we got to meet some new people, and that was really fun. And we're hoping to be able to do more free things within the community like that. So I have a little ad to show you. Let me change this here. So to be able to do things like this, like our virtual support groups and our events at the Clay Center, we have to have fundraisers because we're a nonprofit. So our next in-person event is going to be April 17th at the Hurricane City Park. It's technically our third annual Spec Run and Family Fun Day. So I have a little commercial. It's about 30 seconds. I'm going to show you. So if you, in 2020, kind of messed up our plans, but we did have the Spec Run, would that be 2019, and it was a lot of fun. So we hope we get to meet a lot of you and you can form teams and just make it really fun. And that's at the Hurricane City Park this year. Let me check that off my list here so I know that I talked about that. And another exciting thing, if you are here with us live tonight, make sure you comment so I have your name. And we have a couple of giveaways. We have a book to give away and a course to give away. I just feel like Oprah, like you get this and you get that. That's fun. So hang out and put your name in the comments for me. And Taylor, if you don't have any other housekeeping things, we can go ahead and get started here.
Go for it. I'm excited.
Okay, I'm nervous. I can talk all day long, but for whatever reason, it makes me nervous. Okay. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, so like I said earlier, I'm a speech therapist here in West Virginia, and I'm a CARES board member. I went to Marshall for my bachelor's and my master's. Go Herd. And I learned a lot when I was in college, but I have to say that I have learned the most from my son. Colin is almost 7, and that seems crazy that he's that big. But he was diagnosed with autism when he was 3. And just being on that parent side of things has changed my perspective so much. I feel like he has made me a better human, but he's also made me just a better therapist because I know what it's like and I can really empathize. And I know what it's like to just be so devastated because your child needs help and you don't know what to do. So my little presentation tonight is empowering caregivers to build children's communication skills. So I just want you to feel like you leave this tonight with information that you can take back and help your kids, because you are the most important person in your child's life. And I want you to feel like you have some information that you can take and help them. So okay, so if you've seen these word clouds, I sat down and just in like 5 minutes came up with a bunch of words that mean speech therapy to me. Because I know when a lot of people hear speech therapy, they think sounds and just working on maybe someone who can't say their R or S is hard. But speech therapy is actually so much more than that. So when you look at this, you see words like swallowing, stuttering, feeding, AAC. Any of those things can be worked on by a speech language pathologist. And if you know anything about word clouds, the biggest word is the most important word. So when you look at that, communication is what stands out. And that's what all of those things are for. We work on play skills. We work on attention. We work on anything that's going to improve communication. And it's just so much more than just talking. And I think that that's something that's really important to know, because a lot of times you hear people say, well, my therapist just plays. Or when are you going to teach them to talk? Aren't you here to teach them to talk? And it's because they could be working on any of those things that you see there. And to me, I think the most important goal of speech therapy is communication. It's to build interactions because we're forming relationships. And that's really what it's all about. We want to be able to connect with our kids. And if your child is struggling, sometimes that connection isn't as easy to make. And if you don't know what they want or you don't know why they're crying, that just breaks your heart. And I think sometimes we can get lost in the weeds of what a goal is and what are we working on and why are we working on it. It's because we want to build that interaction, and it's all about the communication. I wanted to show you this. I really like this. If you think of a pyramid, the bottom is bigger, the top is small. And if you're going to build a pyramid, you have to start at the bottom. You can't start at the top, because if you try to start at the top of a pyramid, it's just going to collapse because you don't have a good foundation. So when you look at this pyramid, it's divided into different colors. And those bottom colors, the orange and the green, those are your foundational skills. And if you think of those like boxes that you have to fill, those are the boxes you have to fill first, because you want a strong base. You need that foundation. So attention and listening skills. You have to have those skills before you can think about working on those speech sounds that we talked about, and those would be the ones in the purple at the top. So if you see your speech therapist just playing, there's a really good chance that that's what they're working on. They're working on those social skills, those play skills, because it all builds on itself to get us to that purple one at the top. I think it's really important for you to have a good interaction with your therapist, have that relationship where you can ask questions. So I came up with a few that I think are really important. The first one is, do you have specific experience in autism, apraxia, AAC devices? The thing that a lot of people don't know about SLPs is that we're really kind of a jack of all trades. You saw that word cloud that we had earlier. We do a lot, but not everybody can be an expert in everything. And that's okay. But there are certain times when you do want somebody who has very specific training in a certain area. If your child has apraxia, I put that on there because I know a lot of you are probably familiar with that word. Apraxia is a motor planning problem. It requires a very specific type of intervention. So you're going to want to know, does your therapist have experience or extensive training in that? Brooke was on here a few weeks ago, and she talked about feeding. You want someone who specializes in feeding because that's it's very intricate, and they need a lot of extra training to be able to do feeding. That goes on to number 2, what goals are you working on? If somebody is working with my child, I want to know what they're working on. And if you think back to that pyramid that we just saw, we have to know where they are and where to meet them. So we want to know what those goals are, because question number 3, what do I need to be doing at home? And this one is so important because you have to be your child's primary therapist. And I know that sounds really scary, and you think, that's what I pay people for. I pay people to be my kid's therapist. But if you think about it, you probably see your speech therapist, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to an hour a week. I did some math, and I will tell you, I did not major in math, so take this with a grain of salt. But we have about 112 hours of waking hours in a week. Unless your kid doesn't sleep, then you might have more. But if you get an hour of speech therapy a week, that leaves 111 hours. What's happening in that time? So that's where you are going to want to take that time to work on whatever it is that your therapist has set goals for. And if you have questions at any time, just put them in there, and we will get to those. Okay, so you are the most important member of your child's team. And if you think of if your kid is school age, you have an IEP team, you are the most important because you know your child best. You are the one who's spending the most time with your child, and you're the most invested in their progress. So I want you to feel empowered to be able to work on whatever it is your child needs. I have just a few quick suggestions before I get into the different resources that we have to talk about. Ask questions. So those questions that I gave you, or any other questions you have. Your therapist is not going to be offended if you ask questions. They'll actually enjoy it, because then they know that they can share information with you. And that way you're really working together, and it's collaborative, and it's not just one-sided. It's everybody working together. The second one, be proactive. And this is one that I had to learn from personal experience. But a lot of times, help isn't just there. for you. You have to seek it out. And I personally, I saw red flags for autism with my son really early. He was probably 6 months old. And every time we would go to the doctor, I would kind of mention, I don't know. I wonder if maybe there's some autism. And every time they blew me off and they said, oh, no, I don't think so because A, B, and C. And I honestly, when he started birth to 3, I did a self-referral for that because no outside physician or anyone had referred us. So I did that. Sometimes you have to take that extra step and be that mom, if you've ever heard that phrase. I know it's meant to be kind of that mom, but now I take pride in being that mom because it just means that I am stepping out and getting my kid what he needs. Number 3 is complete trainings. There are tons of courses out there. You can go to in-person ones, but the thing is with COVID, we have a lot of access just online right now, and so many things that you might not have had access to previously, you can get that now. I'm going to share some courses that I really like, things that have helped me. Some of them are free, some of them you have to pay for, but in the end, if it is going to help your kid, it is worth it. Number 4, read reliable evidence-based information. So I am of the mindset, the more you know, and you are going to be able to eventually find something that's going to help you. But make sure you're reading reliable evidence-based information. So we live in a world of mommy support groups, and they are wonderful, and they are great to give you a connection to other people who are living this life that you're living. But it doesn't mean that the information is always fact. Or just because I did this for my kid, that doesn't mean that's what's best for your kid. So just know if you're reading information from other parents or from random people on the internet, I know it's a shock, but not everything on the internet is true. So please take it and research it and really look for good, credible sources. I mean, even fact check me tonight. So let's see, number 5, see every moment as a learning opportunity. So I made that one stand out a little bit because to me, that is the most important thing you need to know as a parent. When we think of therapy, a lot of times we think of sitting at a table doing drill flashcards. That doesn't have to be therapy. It can be playing with your child. It's cooking together. It's a learning opportunity when you walk through a parking lot. I mean, any interaction that you can have is a chance to teach or model something. So if we change our mindset about what therapy looks like or where therapy happens, I think that's going to be really helpful. Okay, so when should my child see an SLP? When you have concerns. I told Taylor I was going to get on a soapbox, and here I go. I hear so often, he's just stubborn. He'll talk when he wants to. That is not good advice. Don't listen to that person who tells you that. Children are not just inherently stubborn and say, I could tell her I want that cookie, but I don't want to. They're not doing that. So if they're not talking, if they're not communicating, there's a reason. The reason could be totally different for every child, but there is a reason. They're not just stubborn. And if they could talk, they would talk. So that's the most important thing that you really need to listen to. If your child isn't talking, if they're not playing appropriately, if they're not interacting, If your child is frustrated, or if you are frustrated, then seek professional help now. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having an evaluation. And if the therapist tells you, you know what, they're okay, I wouldn't worry about it, that is perfectly fine. You can come back 6 months from now and do another evaluation. It's not like it's a one and done deal. If you have concerns, then they're valid, and you should do whatever you need to do to either make you feel better and know that, yes, everything is okay, or no, we need some therapy and we're going to get the help that we need. Beth said, I've had to switch pediatricians because ours kept saying the purple and never believed that my son has autism and is delayed. Yes, and that's another thing. Not everybody is a good fit. That's true for any professional. I mean, that's pediatricians, it could be a speech therapist, an occupational therapist. If something isn't lining up, it is okay to switch, and you do what is best for your family. And if people are offended, then people are offended. But I really don't think they will be. You just have to do what is best for you. Okay, so now I kind of put together a bunch of different resources, things that help me as a therapist, but also as a mom. When my son was probably 2.5, that's when I realized that he had some sensory issues, and I knew I didn't know anything about those things. So the more I jumped into things, I found a lot of resources that I didn't know previously because I hadn't needed those things until I needed them for my child. So I have this layout here. I have what the source is, where you can find it, what type of information they have, and then the cost, because I know some of us need free things and some of us are able to pay a little bit more. So I want you to have that there. So I want to go through some of these just so you have an idea of what they are. The First Words Project, it's a really good site kind of to track development. So if you have some questions, your child's younger, and you think, what should they be doing at this point? It's really tracking gestures and actions. And there should be 16 of those by age 16 months. So that's just a really good source to go look at. And I think I was going to show you all these. Maybe I'll wait till the end so I don't mess up my PowerPoint. That is free, so you can go and just check that out anytime. The website's right there, firstwordsproject.com. ASHA. ASHA is the American Speech Language Hearing Association. That is our national certification group. That is where I would recommend you go look for milestones, specific where my child is 24 months old. What should they be doing? What should they be understanding? How many words should they have? That would be the first page that I would send you to. There's a lot of things there too. You can find an SLP, and that sort of information is free to you. The Prinky Romic Company, I meant to grab my son's device. I'm going to text my husband, tell him to bring it to me. Prinky Romic Company is a specific AAC company, and that is alternative augmentative communication. So if you've seen kids using a talker, it's what a lot of people call it, that company specifically does those, and also Toby Dynavox, the second one I put there. You can get, oh, there he is. I didn't even have to text him. Thank you. He was watching me. Aw. But they have trainings. There are specific handouts. If you have any questions about AAC, those are usually my go-to. A lot of the just general information for those sites, they're free. But if you look at the $4 signs there, that is because if you are getting a dedicated speech device, they are not cheap. But just quickly, so you can kind of see, my son has, this is an iPad, and it has lamp words for life. It looks really intense, but we love it. It is a bit pricey for an app, but it's much cheaper than a dedicated speech device. And if you have questions about AAC and things like that, we can talk about that later. This is like my thing, so I don't want to bore you with all my excitement over AAC, but I just wanted you to kind of see what that looks like. West Virginia Birth to 3. West Virginia Birth to 3 is amazing because it is free. We come to you, and I've realized a lot of people don't know about it. All therapy services are provided. There's speech, OT, PT, developmental services. If you're very fortunate, ABA. So most definitely take advantage of Birth to 3 if your child is in that age range, because once they turn 3, that ends. And for me, I was working in early intervention when my son was that age, and when we got that extra help, it was life-changing to have people come into my home and help me help my kid. It was amazing. And we know that early intervention is so important because that's when little brains are really able to change and learn new things. So we want to get in there as early as possible to help them. The next one is the Autism Training Center at Marshall. I love that we have this resource in the state. It's pretty amazing. I listed out what they have. They have a YouTube channel. We know YouTube is free. You can go watch those. They have handouts. They have a toolkit. But I think my favorite thing is the lending library. So I mentioned to you, read. If you are registered with the Autism Training Center, you can get any books that you want for free. They'll send them right to you. So that is an amazing resource. Go to the next page. Okay, these are specific trainings and organizations that help me as a therapist, but also when my son needed more help, these are the places that I turned to. So the first one is Teach Me to Talk. That is Laura Mize. She is a pediatric speech language pathologist based in Kentucky. I'm not sure if she's still creating content, but even her courses, if they are older, the information is still relevant. It's teachmetotalk.com. And I have one of her books here. I think I've taken every course she has ever had, but you can see how thick this manual is. It's very parent friendly. You can sign up and you can get DVDs sent to you. She has example videos of teaching specific skills to children. She focuses on ages birth to 5, I believe. She also has a YouTube channel that you can go and she will show you just how she would do therapy or a specific type of a book, and she might tell you how she would read it and then what activity she would do. And then she also has a podcast. I haven't listened to that in a really long time, but I'm pretty sure it's still there. Some of those things are free and some of them cost a little bit. The next one is Hannon. Hannon is all over the world. They do trainings literally everywhere. But kind of a great thing that has come from COVID is that there are a lot of trainings that are virtual now. And I checked their website a couple days ago, and they had some courses that they were, I think, in maybe Australia, but you could join in virtually. They have a whole section dedicated to parents. And their main focus is kind of that early intervention. And their first main program is It Takes Two to Talk. So that really shows you the importance of having a very invested adult, because it takes two people to talk. So you have to be able to really to work with your child. And when I say early intervention, if your child's older, but they're still in that area developmentally, then that would still be a good program to use. I wouldn't necessarily look at the ages on those things. I would look at where my child was functioning, because we want to meet them where they are right now. And if that's where they are, then that's where we want to work. Like I said, online classes, but then they also have DVDs. There are books and manuals. So that's Hannon. The next one is Floor Time. Floor Time is Stanley Greenspan. He created Floor Time, and what it is the very child-led approach. It's made a little note here because there are three main things with Floor Time. It's child-led. It's about helping them be creative, and we're expanding on their actions and interactions. So it's a very socially based program, and it's really good. I did this with my son when he was very little. We actually went to Bethesda, Maryland, where the Floor Time clinic is, and we saw Jake Greenspan. Stanley has since passed away, and his son Jake has taken over. But Floor Time is very good if your child struggles with interaction. Getting them to sit at a table that just seems ridiculously difficult to you, Floor Time is a really good option. It just teaches you how to kind of get in their space and interact with them on their level, and then work on that back and forth of communication. There are professional courses, there are parent courses, again, manuals and books. I have one here. Stanley Greenspan wrote tons of books. And again, this is another huge one. But if you just look up Stanley Greenspan, go to his page, tons of things there. Some of those are free. Some of them cost a little bit, but I will tell you, I took the professional course maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Right after my son was diagnosed, I jumped in and took all of these courses, and it's just really good. There are video examples of how he's playing and interacting, and it's very much, it's not necessarily about a therapist coming in and working with your child all the time. It's a therapist teaching you how to work with your child. And I think that's just so important. I love that. The next one, autism modules. So autisminternetmodules.org. These are free, self-paced courses, and they are evidence-based. So if there's anything that you've heard about that you're like, I'm not really sure what that is, you can go to autisminternetmodules.org and you can watch these videos. So if you've heard of video modeling, so that would be just videoing. So a while back, my son was having some trouble brushing his teeth. So we videoed Big Brother brushing his teeth, and then we let Colin watch it because he loves watching videos. And that's just something that really works for him. But they go through all of these and explain, you want to learn about PECS, picture exchange communication systems. There's a whole module on PECS. I just wrote a few down. Speech generating devices. So like this device, you can learn about those. Prompting, you've heard the word prompting. If you you want to watch those and learn how to do a little bit more with your kids. And a lot of these are autism internet modules, but some of those would work regardless of a diagnosis, I think. I lost my mouse here. I have so many things. Okay, the next one, Mary Barbera. So marybarbera.com. I love her because she is a board certified behavior analyst, and she is a mom to a son who's autistic. She was a nurse, and her son was diagnosed with autism in the 90s. And there wasn't a lot of information, just not a lot going on in the world of autism. So she actually ended up going back to school and got her doctorate and is a board behavior, a BCBA. She has so much on her website. She does online trainings. She has a YouTube channel, and I think this is the most helpful thing. You can just go to Google and type Mary Barbera plus whatever you want help with. So Mary Barbera plus imitation, Mary Barbera plus language, Mary Barbera plus potty training. And she has these short little videos that you can watch for free. She has a podcast called Turn Autism Around. I think she's probably close to 100 episodes on that. And I am on there, I think maybe like episode 60 or 70. She interviewed me, and we talked about early signs of autism. She has a book that came out years ago, The Verbal Behavior Approach. And that book changed my life. My son does ABA. And that was one of the first recommendations that we got. I recommend this book to every SLP. If you are an SLP and you're listening to this, you need to read The Verbal Behavior Approach. It explains what ABA is, how it works, why it works. And she even has specific chapters on potty training and things like that. And it's just so helpful. Parenting in general, but as an SLP, I think it really brings to light a lot of things that SLPs don't know about ABA. So highly recommend that. And then she has a new book. It has not come out yet. I think it's either March or April of this year. It's called Turn Autism Around. And I've read the first chapter, and it's amazing. This, I can already tell you, this is the book I wish I would have had 5 years ago. So definitely look into that. You can pre-order it. I've already pre-ordered mine. You can tell I'm a big ABA fan. I have a couple of BCBAs here. The next one is Rose Griffin. And Rose is what we call a unicorn because she's dually certified. She is an SLP, and she is a behavior analyst. Her website is abaspeech.org, and she has a little bit of everything. She has a blog, she has these online trainings, she does online consults. She also has a podcast. It's called the Autism Outreach Podcast. And if you want to hear me talk some more after tonight, you might not want to. I think that episode of mine is supposed to come out at the end of March. But Rose is wonderful. I have taken several of her courses. They're great. And she focuses a lot on teens. She works, I believe, in a public school and at an ABA clinic. And she works a lot on play and what we call leisure activities. So definitely check her out. And actually, that comes to our first giveaway. So Rose is a friend of mine, and I mentioned to her that I wanted to do a giveaway tonight and said, hey, if you were going to give away one of your courses to a parent, which one would you recommend? And when I said that, she said, oh, this is a great idea, and I would love to donate this. So she donated this class. It can be fun and games, social skills, and modified leisure skills for students in pre-K to 6th grade. And Taylor, maybe I'll have you pick a winner at the end. And then I have the code so I can send that to you. So that's my first Oprah moment. You get this.
Yay.
Yay. Taylor, sorry, I just have talked and have not let you even jump in at all.
That's what you're here for. Everything you're saying, I'm so fascinated about. Beth made a comment. These are awesome resources. I've never heard of these except for Birth to 3 and Autism Training Center. And I have to agree. You have really, really opened up my eyes to the resources out there.
I'm so excited. See, I just love this because I feel like I just really know what it's like to watch your child struggle and you just feel so just devastated because you can't help them. And I feel like because I was a therapist, I did have a little bit more resources because I was already doing a lot of these trainings. And my best friends are therapists, so I had people to go to. But I know that a typical parent who doesn't live therapy every day, they don't have those resources. So I want to share it all. So that is the first giveaway. So that is from Rose. She's based in Ohio too, so she's close. And so takeaways. Okay, yeah, takeaways. If you only get a few things out of all this tonight, I have 3 main things I want you to get. And that's to meet your child where they are right now. And that's where it's going to come in that you want an assessment by an SLP to determine their level of functioning and appropriate goals. So think back to that pyramid again. If we're trying to work at the top of that pyramid, but they're really more in the middle of the pyramid, then we're not meeting them where they are, and we're not going to get the most out of our intervention. And I don't want anybody beating their head against a wall because what they're doing isn't working. And if it's not working, it's either we've chosen the wrong goal or we're not teaching it well. So we're going to have to back up and change something. The next one is make it functional. Again, it's a soapbox. I get really frustrated when I look at kid toys because even baby toys focus on colors and shapes and ABCs. A 6-month-old and a 12-month-old, they don't need to know those things. But because that's what everything has, that's what we as parents think they need to know. So that's not really functional for them. So by functional, we mean what's really going to help them in their day-to-day? What's going to help them interact? What is going to help them with their communication? Is it better to teach them how to tell me what they want or be able to say their ABCs? And we have to think about that when we're deciding what to work on. So we want to make it functional. And then the third one, again, I've said this a few times, but it's important. Every moment is a chance to learn. Therapy doesn't have to be sitting at a table doing cards or a worksheet. It could be cooking, it's playing in the dirt, it's outside, it's going to the grocery store. Taking a bath is a really good time because you have a captive audience that can't go anywhere. So all of those they're learning opportunities. And that's, if you're familiar with Temple Grandin, she was diagnosed with autism maybe in the 50s. So much different world than we have now. But her biggest advice is give children experiences. And the more opportunities you have, the more chances you have to learn. So I didn't put her on there, but she is also an excellent resource, and she's written tons and tons of books. And there's actually a movie about her that is fascinating. It's Thinking in Pictures with Claire Danes. It's amazing. Have you seen it, Taylor?
Yes. And actually right now at Marshall, they're using her to as one of the original teachers of how, I guess, more original, like pioneers of extending or adapting teaching techniques and using visuals to help teach individuals with autism.
Yeah, I went to see her speak last year, just right before the world shut down, and I got to meet her, and I was so starstruck. I was like, can I please take a picture with you? I was just so excited. She signed my books. That was like a bucket list moment. But yeah, she's amazing, and anything that you can watch of hers it's going to be good information too.
We have a question from Beth, and she asks, what are some things we can do to help our kids with setting and paying attention?
So paying attention, it's a tough one. The first thing I would recommend is finding something that they like. So if you're trying to do something that they're not interested in, you might as well just throw that out the door, because like if I'm not interested, I want to run away, right? So find something that they like, something they want to do, because it's best to practice with something that if you've got a good reinforcer, right? You've got something they want, something they really like. And that kind of goes back to, there's some ABA principles in there, but floor time is really good at that. There's literally a video where Dr. Greenspan is working with a family, and the little girl, she wants this wallet. It's just this little rectangular wallet, not really a toy, but she wants it. So he takes it and he kind of puts it on his head and just sits there. So he's making himself part of that interaction. It's not just the wallet. She has to come over to him to get it. So then she takes it, and then it becomes this fun little game where he hides it, and then she has to come get it. So anything that they're already enjoying is a good opportunity to practice working on attention. And then anything that you can build yourself into. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but hopefully it's a start there.
And kind of on that note, Deidra, if you don't mind, could you go over real quick, just emphasizing how important it is that you're still talking to your child and working on that relationship, even if you don't get the typical verbal and sometimes emotional feedback that you would receive in a separate situation?
Thank you for saying that. Yes. I've heard parents say, well, why would I talk? He's not going to answer me. Don't ask questions. Just talk about what you're doing. Because here's the thing, our kids are so much smarter and more capable than we give them credit for a lot of times. They're still hearing it. You're still exposing them to that language, and that is key. And just because they aren't saying anything, that doesn't mean that they don't have anything to say. Some people won't go on and become a speaking person, but they could use sign language. They could use a device. That's where we're going to need to work on an alternative, maybe at that point. But yeah, just because they're not talking doesn't mean that you should be quiet. I mean, I don't think you've heard me stop and take a breath in this whole last 50 minutes. So, I mean, I talk all the time. And for the longest time, I didn't even know if my son could hear me, because I wasn't getting any response from him. But as he's gotten older and he is verbal now, I've realized he's been taking in a lot more than I would have given him credit for. So absolutely. Thank you, Taylor.
And thank you for touching on that.
Oh, you're welcome. Next giveaway. So I wrote a book a couple years ago, and my main goal was that I just wanted this book in classrooms at school. I wanted to be able to teach kids about autism in a way that they could understand. And I just sat down one day and I was like, this book isn't out there, so I'm going to write it. it talks about autism. You see little Artie there. He has an AAC device. It's just a little rhyming book. I think he's pretty cute. So I'm going to give one of these away today. And if you send me your address, I can just send it right from Amazon.
I have seen that and read my daughter many times in the waiting room of my son's speech therapy office.
Oh, that's awesome!
That's so cool to find out you wrote that. It was a good tool for me while we were waiting, while he was receiving his therapy, to explain autism to her and the differences to her. And it's been really helpful. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Well, and I thought of when my older son started kindergarten, I thought, he knows so much about autism because he lives this every day. But his little friends don't, and I want them to understand that, Colin is smart and he's capable and he is fun and he's amazing. And you just need to understand that he's a little bit different, but that's okay. Paula said, I purchased this book for my grandson and it's wonderful. Oh, thank you. Well, that just made my day. So any other questions after I did my little Oprah giveaways?
That's exciting. I'll start, and if someone ends up a question pops up into their mind, we'll go back. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Because I'm not seeing anything yet, but I really thank you for taking the time and all those resources. That's incredible. I know I'm definitely going to go back and, check through them, especially since a lot of us have been stuck home. That's one issue we've had is our son missing out on his outside speech therapy, the therapy he gets out of school, because virtual doesn't really work well for him. So seeing services where we can help. And I've actually got an 11-month-old who hasn't started babbling yet. And so I've really been looking on how to, help him. So that's just incredible. I want to say from myself personally, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So much for coming and talking about this.
Hey, I can talk all the time, whenever. You just let me know you need somebody to talk to or listen. I mean, I'm good at listening too, but in West Virginia too, we just don't always have access to things. Where I live, we don't have a clinic. If you get speech in the schools, that's it. So to get speech, you are going to have to drive at least 30 or 40 minutes. So it's nice to feel like you have some power to do things at home.
Incredible.
It says, can you tell folks about how to get services through school? Yes. So there is a gap between age birth to 3 and school. But if your child is aging out of birth to 3, which is the day of their 3rd birthday, services stop. So there is a transition process that your child would go through testing with the school system. And then if it's determined that, yes, they still qualify for services, then you can actually take them to your local school. And it's just like going to an outpatient clinic. I see kids, I work in the schools right now, and I see kids who do that they're 3 and 4 years old, but they're not in preschool yet. And mom and dad just bring them in. I see them for 30 minutes and then they go back home. So that does kind of cover that gap. I know I told you services just end at 3. They did for us because we didn't choose to do that. But you definitely have that option.
I'm not an expert, but I can pitch in that our process, our experience was when we knew that 3rd birthday was coming up, we started calling Head Start to get it. And so we were able to have a smooth transition. And in my bachelor's, I interned with Head Start, and I know that they can be a good public resource. Just as what you said, but look up your county's Head Start.
And also outpatient clinics. I don't know where everybody's watching from, but there are several in the Kanawha Valley, from Huntington to Charleston. Call, because a lot of them will have waiting lists. So you can call when they're maybe 2.5, and just get put on that waiting list. Then hopefully timing works out well that you wouldn't have a big gap in services. Beth had a question. Are there any programs for kids who have aged out of birth to 3? So you can transition into the school system and then outpatient therapies. I think right now with COVID, most of them are open again and doing in person, but I know some people are still choosing to do virtual. And that has actually been another benefit of COVID. I know we talk about all the bad things, but there have been some good, because people who live so far out that they just don't have any access to services, telepractice has become more common. So if you live pretty far out, you could still get therapy that way.
And do you think it would be appropriate, Deidra, if you're already in birth to 3 and you're in that 2.5 stage, to talk to your own therapist and or your service coordinator and ask for them to help you kind of with the legwork of finding a clinic that will take the child?
I know I've done birth to 3. I did it for about 10 years. And I would always try to tell people, like, hey, I heard on the inside that this place has some openings, so you might want to go and get on their list. Most of your speech therapists will know local clinics and places that you could go, but it is your service coordinator's job to be able to help you coordinate that. When you're in birth to 3, you have a period called transition, and it's about that last 6 months of your services that you do work on getting everything transitioned over and where you're going to go next. So
that's incredible. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So much information. I'm excited personally about it. I wanted to touch base with everyone. I always like the idea of the installation of hope. And support, and all that is saying, look at the bright side. And I can definitely take so many things from your presentation: building relationships with children, having a better idea of where to pull resources from, and then obviously understanding that we're not going through these things alone. We, just like you and I were talking before the video started about having to continuously switch pediatricians until we found one that made us feel validated. And then someone popped up in the comments and said, well, here's what my pediatrician did to me. I think it's really important to point out that we're not going through these things alone. Even in our own separate spaces and families and situations, we're going through these things together. And so I think it's really important to remember that. I hope everyone is still practicing realistic self-care, whether it's making the 20 seconds out of your day to walk over to the sink and get a glass of water. If you're starting to have a little bit of that body awareness that you're starting to feel dehydrated, I hope that you have found methods of self-care like mindfully watching TV, not just staring at entertainment, but choosing something for you. This is something I will enjoy. I'm really glad that, Deidra, you provided some links to podcasts, because that's something I've noticed helping me manage my own time, because it's really hard and frustrating that you can't sit down and read information if you're like me and have a very noisy, busy household. So I've tried to make a habit of, in the car, going to pick my kids up from school, listening to audiobooks or podcasts, or when I'm cleaning, to listen to them. So I hope that advice might help someone out. Something we talked about last week, our kind of homework, was to really think about the way you talk to yourself. And if you would ever talk to a loved one that way, or let someone else talk about a loved one that way. And I hope what you can do to expand on this idea this week is either write a letter or text message, even email to yourself, and sit down and say all the things you appreciate that you do for you. And if this is kind of hard, or it felt kind of silly, here's another option that's either less silly or more silly, depending on how you look at it. But imagine you're an imaginary friend that unconditionally loves you, the way I know a lot of you probably unconditionally love and care for others. And so write either that text or that note or that email, whatever your preferred and most realistic ritual would be, and let yourself know how much you appreciate you, because it's important that you are both giving and receiving credit, because you're doing a lot of hard but important, very important work. So I hope you are taking care of yourself, managing yourself well. If you'd like to drop in the comments what you've managed to do for self-care, or something you realized you should start being easier for yourself for, I think that would be really helpful to others, because they might get ideas or say, hey, I never thought of doing it that way. So please share that and give yourself credit for being here, checking out this video today, because that's you seeking out information and seeking out help for yourself. So I really, really thank you guys for coming tonight. Beth says she loves podcasts too, so that's great. Me too.
I do too. That's a new thing for me, podcasts.
I love podcasts. I've gotten really into audiobooks too, especially having to read books for class or parenting help books. There's one I found just the other day on how to talk to your children about scary situations, like things like COVID. And I love it. Sarah bought a new moisturizer. Last week she got grape leaves. This week she got a new moisturizer. She's taking care of herself, and we really, really appreciate that. And what a wonderful example, Sarah. Thank you for sharing that. So, Deidra, thank you so, so much.
Well, thank you.
We want to think about next week. Any questions you have for a presenter? I'm trying to pull up.
It's Shala, and I will butcher her last name. There we go.
Alal Rosales, I think. And she's talking about ABA. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I've heard so many good things about her, so I'm very excited. Well, thank you all for joining us. We ended like almost right on time. We're good.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. And
have a good
night. Are we contacting the winners through Messenger later?
Yeah, okay. That'll be good. Thank you all
so much. Bye.